has been the envy of the world for centuries, actually. In fact, private higher education predates the Declaration of Independence, predates the Constitution, and we have a system of both private and public education in higher education. We have a system of K-12 private and public education that goes on for centuries as well. You mentioned the public benefit of public schools, and I would agree with you. There's a great public benefit when it comes to public schools. But we can't overlook the public benefit of private schools either, both at the, in higher education, but in K-12 education as well. There is a public benefit for private schools. Students who graduate from private schools go on to serve in the communities that you spoke of, just like students do in public schools as well. So I don't think that we should miss that private education provides a public benefit. And as already been stated, these are taxpayer dollars that are following students to those private schools. The other thing that I would mention, another point, and you are correct that comparing one test to another is not possible, but certainly we're smart enough in Tennessee to be able to look at testing results. And one of the things that we did when it came to the EFA is that we said that those schools had to be either Category 1, 2, or 3 schools. They could not be Category 4 schools. So what's the difference? The difference is that those categories of schools are accredited by regional accrediting bodies. So those requirements, that transparency that you spoke of, and I've served on accreditation teams at the K-12 level, that transparency is great. In fact, it takes a much deeper dive than we do when it comes to what we do as a legislature when it comes to our public institution. It looks at testing results, it looks at finances, it looks at teacher qualification, looks at all those things. So I think that we were very wise when it came to passing the EFA to say, okay, those schools that are going to accept students and accept the scholarship, it's not a voucher, it's a scholarship, those that are going to accept the scholarship are going to have to be those that fit in a category where they're accredited, where there is great transparency and great accountability. And so I think that there was great wisdom in what we passed earlier this year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Johnson.
So can you explain to me why the students with vouchers perform worse? And when you make the comparison...
Well, I will say that's about the third time that that's been referenced, and I don't think we've had anything sent to our committee as far as any kind of documents to state that. It could be factual.
It's on the state website.
Well, we would need to have that, you know, make sure that gets to committee before it's used several times in committee, but go ahead.
It's been reported on multiple times using data from the state website, but
what is the exact data?
It's you know, there are multiple schools. I don't know the data for all the schools, but I do know that that every voucher student was performing more poorly than public school peers. But back to university. I didn't say private schools aren't a value. Private schools are certainly can be a value, some better than others, of course. But the comparison, it's intellectually dishonest to compare university and college to K-12 because K-12, every single child is required to go. With university, it's a choice of whether or not you want to attend. But when we are requiring every kiddo in Tennessee to attend school and we are using public tax dollars to pay for them, we need to make sure that those folks are doing their job. And again, why are you letting private schools out of something you are requiring of public schools who are accredited? You're talking about accreditation. Okay, well, our public schools have accreditation, but you want to put grades on them. You want to grade them A through F. You want to put all of these requirements on them, but yet you're saying whatever accreditation these private schools have is just fine and they don't need any more. Doesn't make sense to me. The logic is not functioning here.
Representative Slater?
Just one quick follow-up. You really make the argument for why it's even more important for us to provide choice for parents when it comes to K-12 education. Because we do have compulsory education laws. So that's even, it's more incumbent upon the legislature then to allow parents to choose the school which best suits the needs of their child. We have compulsory education. Why should we force then parents to send their children to a particular school because of a zip code? We should be providing more choice. I'm glad to hear that you are in favor of choice. I guess that perhaps it's just your choice is in a different area than mine. Mine has to do with providing for parents who have K-12 students the ability to choose where their children attend school.
All right. Representative Johnson?
Yes, thank you. I do support choice, but what I want to make clear is we have choice in Knox County. We could go to a school outside of our zip code. We have STEM academies, career prep. If we are fully investing in our public schools, we can offer those choices within our public schools. Sadly, we're in the bottom 5 of funding in this state, our schools. And so when you're doing that, when you're strangling, especially our rural communities, in what they can offer to our kiddos, then you are restricting choice. And then you're telling them to go to a private school, which just probably don't have one in their rural county. So, and then you're not going to provide transportation, so if they want to go out of county, their parents are going to have to be able to take them. This is not a real choice for kids. Let's fully fund our public schools and offer those choices within those schools so that we don't have to drain money away to private entities that you guys seem unwilling to make a little more transparent for the people who want to go there or the people who are funding them.
Representative Mayberry?
Question.
Question has been called. Members, we are set to vote on House Bill 1214. Madam Clerk, please open up the board. Members, please cast your vote. Would any member like to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 2 yes, 6 no's.
All right, with 6 no's, bill fails to pass. And that brings us to item number 10 on the calendar. Properly motion, that is House Bill, what number? 1109 by Representative Salinas. It has been properly motioned, and I see no amendments, so Representative Salinas, you are recognized on House Bill 1109.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. What my bill does is requires private schools who are eligible to take vouchers to run background checks on anyone holding positions that require proximity to students at the schools. So this is not only for the teachers, but also for any other faculty member, administrator, anyone that has access to the students. And what is required is looking through the registry of sex offenders, a health abuse registry, as well as looking to see if the license of the educator has been previously suspended. And this is I brought this bill in an effort to make sure that our kids are safe regardless where them or their parents decide to go to school. So with that.
All right, thank you for that explanation. Members, any questions for our sponsor? Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is pretty timely piece of legislation here in terms of, you know, the issues going on over in East Tennessee with respect to, you know, folks not giving background check. This wasn't for a private school, so I don't want to make that clear. But are you saying that there's no statewide mandate that anybody teaching our children, public or private, that a background check is required for them to interact with our children?
Representative Salinas, you're recognized.
There is no current law that requires that. That doesn't mean that there aren't private schools that are doing it out of their own need to keep their students safe and to provide that information to parents. But there is no current law that requires every single private school or public school, as our public schools are already doing it, that requires them to run background checks on people that have access to kids.
All right, members. Representative McKenzie.
Just one quick follow-up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm assuming, and it says here that, you know, with this, there's no real cost to the taxpayer, because like when, you know, I officiate in sports, and every year we have to get a background check just to interact for that 1 hour or 2 hours with the children. But I pay for that background check, so that's when I'm assuming that the applicant, or if the school has a fund pot of money, that process will not be incurred by the taxpayers. That's by the individual or the school.
Representative Salinas.
The way the bill is written, the cost would be paid by the school. So no.
I'm sorry, go ahead, finish your thought there.
It would be paid by the school, and there would be no cost to the state or the taxpayers.
All right, thank you. And members, we did have a little bit of insight about what the state board already mandates. So I'll go out of session and let legal talk to that. So without objection, we'll go out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Legal Services. Currently, in State Board of Education rules, it requires for their approval process to be considered a Category 1 through 5 school that criminal history record checks are conducted prior to employment for any person applying for or holding a position as a teacher or any other position requiring proximity to school children.
All right, members, without objection, we will go back into session. Just want to make sure that we had what was currently in place on the record there. All right, members, without any other questions for our sponsor, Representative Hakeem.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I didn't know if I need to ask the attorney while we were out of session, but is this, when we say public schools, does that also means that if public dollars are going to a school, that it would also have the same guidelines or requirements?
All right, without objection, members, we will go back out of session.
Could
Katie
you?
Robertson. Go ahead, Representative Hakeem, please state that one more time for legal.
Any school that receive public dollars, would they have the same requirements as far as background checks and other things of that nature that what we consider a public school would?
To be considered a Category 1 through 5 school, regardless of whether you're receiving state funds, you're required to conduct criminal history background checks. And the language in State Board of Education rules regarding the criminal history background checks is the same as public schools.
All right, thank you. Representative Hakeem for legal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Presently, with our schools, who pays for that? The background checks and so forth.
Are you talking about the private schools?
Now, if you receive public dollars in a school, considered private or public, who pays for those background checks?
There's no language in the bill that's being considered or the State Board of Education's current rules as to who pays for the background checks.
All right, Representative Hakeem.
Presently, okay, I'll say, okay, you said there's no guidelines. So who's paying for it? You know, I'm not hearing clearly who's paying for it. If it's not the school system, you know, who's paying for it?
I think that we have a member that has some insight on the way that this procedure works. So without objection, we will go back into session, and I will go to Representative Slater.
Thank you, Chairman. And Representative Hakeem, in answer to that question, private schools, they pay for the background checks. As was stated by legal, we already are doing this in the state. I referenced earlier Category 1, 2, and 3 schools. As you heard from legal, this goes beyond to Category 4 and Category 5 schools as well. Even those schools that are not accredited still provide background checks, and that is covered by the private schools themselves. Whether or not they're a part of the IEA program or the current ESA program, and I suspect as the rules are promulgated for the FS, the new scholarship, that will be the same as well. So private schools pay for that. I would say to the sponsor that I appreciate the sentiment of this, because you are correct. Anyone who is working with children has access to children, whether they're a teacher, whether they're a maintenance worker, cafeteria worker, bus driver. I agree 100% with you that they need to be there. They need to have routine and regular fingerprinting, screening, and background checks. And fortunately, in Tennessee, we do have in place those provisions for all students in any school, whether they're public or private. As was referenced earlier, there are some unfortunate situations, and one that was recent in a public school over in East Tennessee, and that's certainly unfortunate that would take place. But that's not the fault of the legislature. That's the fault of those who did not follow the law. So I appreciate your sentiment. I'm going to be voting against this because it's actually unnecessary legislation because this is already in place. But thank you so much for the sentiment, because you're exactly right. We need to make sure that folks that have access to children, that they go through thorough background checks.
All right. Thank you, Representative Salinas. You're recognized.
Yeah, a rule is not a law. So if we want to say that we value the safety of kids, we should put that in our laws.
Thank you for that. The rules in this case, though, do apply the same force as law as far as our schools are concerned. Any other questions for our sponsor? Seeing none, we'll be opening up the board for, Madam Clerk, please open up the board for voting on House Bill 1109. Members, please cast your votes. Would any member wish to change their votes? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 2 ayes, 6 noes.
All right, and with 6 noes, the bill does fail to pass. I will be moving the gavel down to Chairman White for a few bills.
Thank you, Chairman Haston. And members, we're on item number 11, HB 90, which is, I believe, was taken off notice. Taken off notice. So HB 0090 has been already declared off notice. That brings us to item number 12, House Bill 91. You got a motion and a second. Chairman Haston, you're recognized.
Thank you. And the amendment that rewrites the bill has drafting code 5309.
So the amendment does rewrite the bill. Any objection to adding the amendment to the bill? I need a motion and a second. Motion. You got a motion second on the amendment. So any objection to the question? Adding the amendment, what was the amendment number?
5309.
Of adding 5309 onto House Bill 91. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is properly amended. Chairman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill reduces unnecessary testing that is not connected to student scholarships or college requirements. It adds much needed focus on ACT preparation success, which are tied to scholarships and colleges, keeps accountability in place but bases it on an exam that directly connects students to college opportunities. It reduces the TCAP EOCs in the high school and would allow for us to then have pre-ACT in 9th, pre-ACT in 10th, and ACT in 11th, and it does not remove the retake in 12th. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Members, with that explanation of the bill, we'll open it up for discussion to Chairman Haston. Representative Hakeem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for, I guess, point of clarity, the end of course tests, are those being eliminated?
Chairman Haston.
The math and English would be replaced by the ACT. We would be keeping the science EOC, since the science EOC, the science portion of the ACT will not be available in the coming years.
It won't be
You're recognized, sir.
okay, when it won't be available, it's being phased out, or what are we saying?
Chairman?
Yes, and the science portion of the ACT, yes, but the math and English is remaining the same.
Chairman, Representative Hakeem.
Oh, I guess, what is it about the science piece of this evaluation that we feel is not necessary?
Chairman Haston?
No, we're keeping the science EOC in place. The part that's being eliminated, the ACT is not going to be offering the science portion on the ACT. So this bill just focuses the math and English accountability on what's off of the ACT, but the science will stay the same as it has been off of the EOC that's currently given at the high school level.
Thank you. Members, someone else? Anyone? Representative Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chairman, can you tell me a little bit about, is this permissive for an LEA to choose a different test, or does it require the ACT?
Chairman Haston?
This would require that the ACT is already required, but this would just require that the accountability be tied to ACT. Right now, I had this one quote that came from a director that is not in my district, but I thought it was perfect for what we're talking about. With ACT being a major focus for every graduate, being split between EOCs and ACT can cause issues. EOC focus makes ACT prep that is needed tough, and many times a tug of war takes place between the EOC and ACT. And we're all for accountability and we're all for data, but we need to tie it to the data that matters and tie it to an exam that connects students directly to scholarships and directly to post-secondary opportunities. Governor Haslam had a quote 10 years ago, you can look this up on YouTube, where the state of Tennessee's ACT score went up 0.3 points. And he said, up 0.3 points on our ACT scores is a huge number on a statewide basis, and it's significant. It's really critical everyone realizes our current approach needs a continued commitment. Well, since 2018, we've gone down 1.4 points. So if that fact remains that was a huge, significant jump, then dropping 1.4 points is something that should state that we should do something different and that we're failing our students on the focus that we have it on right now.
Representative Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my oldest is actually taking the ACT today, so I can appreciate all that goes into studying for that and doing other things too. Last thing. The Department of Education may go away. Does this language accommodate for that?
Chairman Haston?
Yes, I don't think that anything that happens at the federal level will have anything that will dictate what we can do here with this today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. President Bolso?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Chairman Haston, for bringing this. I've got a question about expectations. If we, in fact, remove these end-of-course assessments from school, how is that likely to affect the actual instruction in the classroom and what students are actually being taught in the classroom by teachers?
You recognize?
It really wouldn't change anything as far as what they're being taught. It would remove 13 hours of testing time away from their schedule. It would be one bonus. So it would just increase the ability to have more time to teach our standards. Also, if this does get to full committee, I do have some data I can send out, some crosswalks that shows how the ACT does align well with Tennessee standards. Which is something that gets said that it doesn't a lot of times. And so that'll be something that that you all can research on those crosswalks yourself. But I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Representative Kenzie, you have a comment?
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this bill, because what this bill would do, it get to our last kind of conversation, at least in this particular time, we'll get a direct comparison with the ACT test, because it's the same for private schools, same for public schools. So this makes sense, and hopefully this will be part of the path that gets us to being able to make these direct comparisons. So thank you for bringing the bill.
Chairman Hastings.
Thank you, and I'll just say my one last follow-up is that what we would be doing here is not reinventing the wheel at all. If you will look up, and this will be part of some information I'll send out to you all before full, if you look at the U.S. News World Report rankings of the states with the best public high schools in America, and they have a very good formula that they use to determine that based on career readiness and assessments and serving underprivileged children. State of Tennessee ranks 33rd right now, and 7 of the top 12 states with the best public high schools do not have additional state mandated tests, or 7 of the top 12 do not have state mandated and focus solely on SAT or ACT, and 5 of the bottom 8 states in this ranking do have additional state mandated tests. So there is definitely a pathway for this to work and to be successful, and I think that we've tried the way that we're currently under, and I think that our declining ACT scores show that it has not been working. With that, I renew my motion.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chairman Hastings. And I know Chairman Hastings and I, we've had this conversation many times, so he kind of knows where, so before he takes the gavel back from me. Here's my concern. I want us to really flush out, and this is where I haven't been able to get past, specifically on this particular bill or other bills like it. End of course, this would remove, like, as the chairman said, math, English, and U.S. history end of course. The end of course is really a final exam. Now, if you go back before 2007 in our state, when we did not have college and career ready standards, and basically when I used to teach school, I would teach science, and then I would create my own test based upon the curriculum that I was teaching, and then test the students where they passed or failed that. So the end of course test, in my opinion, and I stand to be corrected, is a final exam for the information that you learn during that semester or that year's course. And so removing the final exam, which is, by the way, based upon Tennessee higher standards, which we didn't have before 2007, and that's when we've talked about this many times, the NAEP scores, NAEP was showing us when we took the national NAEP test that we were around 34% proficient. We were showing 96% proficient before that time. Well, we adopted college and career ready. I don't know if y'all remember the Common Core debacle that we went through during those years? Well, Governor Haslam, for a year, set up for us a committee across the state, and then we adopted Tennessee higher standards, college and career. And once we started giving the end of course in these subjects, lo and behold, we matched up with NAEP. We were 34% proficient, so with truth in advertising for the first time. So my concern, if you remove the end of course test or the final exam, there's really no other way we know that the student is achieving that information. The ACT is a great test, but it's not based upon Tennessee standards. So if we quit testing based upon Tennessee standards, what does that mean? So that I'm concerned about. I'm all for the ACT, but I'm a little concerned if that is our only test and we remove the final exam, basically, of make sure, and we do a lot of accountability on that, accountability on teachers and accountability on TVOS and a lot of things on how well the students are doing at the end of each semester or year. So that is my concern about going fully ACT and removing the end of course. Chairman Hastings.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we've had a lot of good debate over this, you and I, in over the years. And I do think, like you'll see, I don't think that it's quite accurate on the saying that ACT, there's a lot of similarities when you see the crosswalk. ACT hits a lot of the marks, most of the marks on the Tennessee standards. And right now, you know, NAEP scores have looked better for us, but the NAEP scores are only taken by 3% of students, and the NAEP does not align with Tennessee standards at all. I mean, it's way far off from what the ACT even does. And the NAEP isn't connected to any scholarship money, and it's not connected to any post-secondary opportunity. And you can still get final exams, and using the pre-ACT in 9th and 10th grade and the ACT in 10th grade, I think we can still hit all the accountability measures that we currently can. And I'll just say this, don't take my word for this. You know, members, you know, that are voting and full committee coming up, you go ask your counselors and you go ask your principals and you ask them and you present this bill to them and you just take their advice and do what they say on this. Don't take my advice. And they're the ones that brought me this bill. And so if your group says, no, we love the EOCs, it's the best thing we have, then vote against it. If they say this is a better pathway forward, we're seeing a decline in our ACT scores, we would like to have more focus to get them prepared for that test, then I would ask for you to take their advice and vote for it.
Thank you, Chairman Haston. Members, Representative Mayberry.
Chairman Haston, I just want to thank you for this legislation. As a school board member, speaking to a lot of teachers, students know that these tests don't count towards their grades, and teachers' evaluations are heavily weighed on these tests. And it's kind of an unfair scenario to put them in as they're being evaluated based on these tests. ACT does affect their future, and I believe that this will help their overall education as we align the standards to the ACT. I appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else would like to weigh in on House Bill 91? Seeing none, any objection to the question being called? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll on House Bill 91? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 4 ayes, 3 noes.
Thank you very much. House Bill 91 does move out to a full committee. Thank you, committee. Let's now look at item number 13 by Chairman Haston, House Bill 138. You got a motion and a second. Chairman Haston, you're recognized.
Thank you. And this does have an amendment that does not rewrite the bill. I'll be glad to explain.
Got a motion? There is an amendment? Okay. What is the amendment number, sir?
It basically makes it, it just changes it to the funds being non-recurring funds.
And the amendment number?
6196.
Members, we're on Amendment 6196. Doesn't rewrite the bill, but with that, one second.
Yeah, we got 5.
Okay. Member, we're on Amendment 6196, and Chairman Haston will explain that amendment. It does not rewrite the bill. Would you give us a?
It just makes it to where it's not. It goes to the funding being non-recurring funds.
Okay, members, any objection to adding Amendment 6196 onto House Bill 138? Please think of saying any objection. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is amended properly. You're recognized on House Bill 138.
Thank you, members. This bill just simply establishes a CTE grant fund that public schools can use to purchase high-quality CTE curriculum. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
With that explanation, members, any questions on House Bill 138? Seeing none, any objections to the question being called? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 4 ayes, 1 no.
House Bill 138 does move out to full committee. That brings us to item number, and for those in the audience, we have a lot of members having to carry bills in other committees. That's why we lost a few members. Hopefully they'll be back shortly. Item number 14, House Bill 1001 by Chairman Haston. You're recognized. You got a motion, you get a second.
All right.
I give you a second. Go ahead. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I believe I do have an amendment that rewrites the bill. It's drafting code 4778.
Okay, Amendment 4778, amendment does rewrite the bill. Got a motion on the amendment. You got a second on the amendment. So any objection to adding the amendment since it does rewrite the bill for proper discussion? Hearing no objection, all those in favor of adding the amendment to the bill, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. It is now your bill is properly amended.
All right, thank you, members. This will sound familiar because this is the exact same part that we added to Representative Leader Cochran's bill last week. It's a permissive bill that gives career technical education students and their high schools flexibility in substituting a CTE course for Algebra 2, foreign language, and chemistry, and still meet high school graduation requirements.
Explanation before us. Chairman Hayes, let me ask one question. A number of years ago in April 2022, we did pass the Industry 4.0 credential. What does that do to this, to that?
It wouldn't really affect that at all. This just makes it to where a student can meet the high school graduation requirements, but it wouldn't hurt that particular graduation path.
Okay, members, let's have any discussion on House Bill 1001. Seeing no further discussion, any objection to the question being called? Hearing none. Would the clerk please call the vote? Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 3 ayes, 3 noes.
Okay, bill fails for lack of a majority. House Bill 1001 fails for lack of majority. Okay, Chairman Haston, you had item number 15, House Bill 1003. You are recognized, Chairman. Got a motion to second?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 1003, this bill keeps the State Board of Education from having to require that a private school who provides a fully online self-paced educational program to comply with certain class size, school calendar, vaccination, and assessment requirements in order to be approved to operate in the state. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any amendments, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, amendment with, is it 4771? Yeah, and that does rewrite the bill and explain and meets the explanation I just made.
Okay, Amendment 4771, we have a motion on the amendment. We have a second. You got a second. So any objection to add the amendment to the bill since it does rewrite it? Hearing no objection, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Your bill is amended properly. And you just gave the explanation. Could you do it just one more time for us?
Sure. This bill keeps the State Board of Education from having to require that a private school provides a fully online self-paced educational program to comply with certain class size, school calendar, vaccination, and assessment requirements in order to be approved to operate in the state. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Members of that explanation, I did have one question. How does this affect the EFS bill we just passed, where if you're a Category 1, 2, or 3 school, we have certain restrictions on the Category 3 schools? You recognize?
Thank you. I don't think that it affects that. I will say that the problem that this is trying to get at is this. Recent regulatory changes that imposed some things on Category 3 schools that created issues with compliance, which put them at risk at their ability to offer online options for students. And so that's the problem that this bill was trying to get at.
Okay, members, questions on House Bill 1003. Representative McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My only problem with this bill is that there's another one coming through that's going to start allowing these virtual students to compete in extracurricular activity, sports, and things of that nature. That's my concern with this one, is that we're opening up, I'm all for, if you want to educate your child at home or have them, or that's more conducive for them. But, if they don't have a tuberculosis, vaccine or something of that nature, they're going to be interacting with other children in a really deeply physical way if they're wrestling team, basketball team. So that's my concern, is that I would say your unintended consequences. I think you have a clean bill, but some of these other things that are moving is going to really put us in a difficult situation, I think.
Thank you, Chairman Haston. Follow up.
Yeah, I think is it House Bill 355 that might be the one powers that, yeah, that's one we're trying to see if we can get these to kind of align. Oh, I'm being told that that's just public. That's just public virtual schools. That is what 355 is dealing with. Is what legal is just informed.
Representative McKenzie.
I'm probably going to have to. I'm going to have to go out ask to go out of session because I'd like to hear more about that. So thank you for chiming in.
Without objection, we're out of session. Recognize legal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Legal Services. I believe the bill that you're referencing is House Bill 355 by Representative Powers. That is requiring of allowing students who participate in a public virtual school operated by an LEA to participate in sports or interscholastic athletics that are provided by an LEA.
You recognize Reverend McKenzie.
Thank you, and thank you for that explanation. So you're saying that these students that this bill will affect will not be able to participate in interscholastic activities and extracurricular type activities.
Legal, you recognize?
House Bill 1003 is for purposes of being operating as a Category 3 non-public school. So the two bills are separate from one another.
You follow up, Representative McKenzie?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm still trying to figure. Yeah, I understand that they're separate bills, but will there be crosstalk? Will, as a result of passing this bill, will students be able to participate in any way, shape, form, or fashion as a result of 355 in activities?
No.
You recognize? Legal.
No, okay. House Bill 355 is public virtual school students, and House Bill 1003 is private virtual schools.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any further questions of legal? Representative Slater?
And this may have been covered. I was out on another bill, presenting a bill in committee. I think the fourth item here has to do with the assessments. And to the sponsor, is there an amendment? Did I miss an amendment, or is that still part of the bill?
Are you asking this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is for the sponsor. I'm sorry. We do.
Any objection? Go back in session. We're now back to Chairman Haston. There was an amendment 4771.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it deleted the requirement that the school administer the test once a year.
Okay, so the first three items are still in the bill, but the fourth item is out. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Okay, members, we are on House Bill 1003. Any further questions of Chairman Haston? If not, any objection to the question being called? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote? Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 0 noes.
Thank you. House Bill 1003 moves out to full committee. Thank you, Chairman Haston. I'm going to give you the gavel back.
All right, we do have Chairman Farmer back here that we're going to try to get to since he's been patiently waiting real quick. If you'll turn without objection to item number 22.
Second.
All right. Chairman Farmer, you are recognized.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Committee,
House Bill 1125.
I have two amendments on this, members. So if we could adopt both, they add to one another so that neither one rewrites. So the first one is amendment coded 4499.
All right, hold on. Let's see which one needs to go on first. Hold on 1 second. Legal thinks that. All right, so the first one makes the bill and the second one rewrites it. So I'm going to go out of session, let legal explain this real quickly. Out of session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Katie Robertson, Legal Services. Both amendments rewrite the bill. So if the committee would like to adopt both of them, then on the second amendment that is adopted, we would need to do a verbal amendment to strike by deleting all language after the enacting clause and substituting, and instead change it to by adding the following as a new section immediately preceding the last section and renumbering the subsequent section.
I apologize.
That's okay. Katie, why don't you write that down and let Chairman White to be able to do that verbal amendment? Because I know he has a great memory, but I don't think that he's going to remember.
I can say it on the
Okay,
record,
so we're going to have Katie say that on the record when we get to that point. So we're going to go back into session. All right, and let's first, I need to take up the 449. All right, 449, we have a motion to second. And we, without objection, we will vote to adopt Amendment 4499. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We are back on your bill as amended. All right, we need a motion to second on Amendment 5987. Properly motioned, and without objection, we will, this is the verbal amendment right here, sorry. All right, I'm going to go to, do I need to go out of session? For staying in session. All right, out of session for the verbal amendment, we'll go to legal.
The verbal amendment for 5987, we need to delete by deleting all language after the enacting clause and substituting section 1. And the new language would be by deleting the last section and adding the following as new sections and renumbering the sections accordingly.
All right, we are going back into session. Chairman White, do you make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we add to the verbal amendment as just described by legal.
All right. Members, without objection, with the verbal amendment, we are set to vote on Amendment 5987. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We are back on your bill as amended. You're ready for an explanation.
Thank you, members. So what these two amendments did, two things now. We're on one now as amended, I hope. So the first one, what the first amendment did, members would prohibit the student achievement growth data from being used to evaluate teachers or principals if the student was enrolled for the school in the school for 50% or less of the school year. So if that kid comes in 50% less of the time, we can't use it against our schools or our principals or teachers. And then the second part of it was this actually comes from a constituent in my district that passed away. Currently, if a teacher passes and has substantial sick days or vacation days, and she had about 400 there, our school system wants to reimburse that estate for these days that this teacher had earned. There's no mechanism in the law to do so. So all I'm saying is that each LEA may, we're not requiring anything, may reimburse these teachers, administrators, estates for any sort of sick time or vacation time they built up and not been able to use before they pass away.
All right. Thank you for that explanation. Members, any questions? President Akeem, quick question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Farmer, the first, I guess, amendment, would you give me that again so I can get my question right?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Thank you. If a student comes into a school and they've not been there, or if a student enrolls in a school where they've been out for some odd reason, maybe they're at another school or somewhere else or not been in school, and they come into that school year and they're there for less than 50% of the time, and their test scores are bad, then it can't be used against the teacher or the principal of that school system.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's what I needed.
All right, members, any other questions? If not, we are set to vote on, what was the number again? House Bill 1125. Madam Clerk, please open up the board for voting. Members, please cast your vote. All right. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 7 ayes, 0 noes.
All right, with 7 ayes, you move on to full education. All right, we'll roll the rest of the calendar to tomorrow, 1:30 p.m. at House Hearing Room 4, and we stand adjourned.